Today we're going to do a little talk on SOSS, Secrets of Successful Sanding. And the reason that I'm doing that is I've had a lot of questions and requests to show the sanding. I had one comment says, well, you showed the finish going on, but you really didn't show the sanding very well. How are you getting it sanded so well that it looks nice when the finish is on? So that's what we're going to do today. The other reason is a number of years ago I hurt my shoulder up here, and it's starting to bother me, and it has in the wintertime before, but it's popping and cracking, and I'm kind of getting tired of that. I can't sleep when it pops that loud. So I'm going to give it a couple weeks in the warm weather. If it doesn't get any better, time to go see a doctor. What I have is two different discs made out of western maple. This one is going to be what not to do. And when I get it in the lathe, I'll tell you some things that I did wrong working my way up to sanding. This one, hopefully, this will be a success and it'll end up looking good. I'll get this mounted up and we'll just start talking about what I think is the wrong way to do it. Now, if you already have a successful way to sand and you're getting great finishes, you got to keep doing that, because there's not just one way to sand. There's many ways to do everything, actually. And if it's really, really a good way, make sure you tell me what you're doing. So this is, nothing more than just kind of a dome plate, but I think it's easier to show you that in the flat. This would work on if you're doing the outside of a bowl or a spindle or any of this. So what I did wrong to begin with on this is I was almost through with this turning, and I decided I'm going to take one more cut because it's time to sand. I want to get this done. Well, I got a terrible cut on this, but heck, I can just sand that out, right? Let's wait and see. I don't know if I can or not. I'll use a sanding pad with 2-inch discs and a power drill to do this. This would also pertain to if you were sanding by hand, and I do a lot of things just holding a sheet of paper. We're going to use a disc, and I'm going to start with 80 grit. Now, if you can turn it so smooth you don't need 80 grit, well, that's what you'd like to be able to do. So I have two stacks of sanding discs. I'll use, for each piece of wood, I'm going to use a separate stack because I don't want to use this after it's been done here, and I'll show you why right now. This being 80 grit, it's got a lot of little rocks glued to there. They're not all nice and even. When you get down to 320 or 220, they start getting pretty even. You're going to have one or two, and I can actually see about 4 of them that are sticking up higher than the rest of them. So you'll be sanding away and it's going to get smooth in places, but one of those high grits, and you're the one that's standing tall, that's going to keep scratching it. And if you go to the next grit and that scratch is in there, it's really hard to get rid of. So you have to spend time to break this disc down, which is what I'm not going to do right now. So I'm going to get a face mask. I'm not going to use my dust collector because that's kind of noisy, and I probably want to talk while we're doing this. Alright, so speed is pretty important when you're sanding. And a lot of things we seem to sand at 400, and sometimes they might want to be 350. It can depend on the wood you're doing, but a lot of it's just the diameter. This one I would probably sand at 320 to 400. I'm going to sand it at 550, which is too fast. And I am going forward, so I need to sand over here. So right here, I'm moving that sanding disc all over the place too fast, not spending enough time in one area to do a proper job. Hey, that looks pretty good. Let's go to the next grit. So that's 220. I'm sorry, that's 80. We're going to go to 120. So I'm changing this way too fast. That 80 grit never even had a chance to do what I wanted it to do. Oh, that sand's so easy. I think we're done. Oh, that's actually so smooth. We're going to just go ahead and jump up to 320. We don't need 240. Yes, we actually did need to go to 240. That I barely even touched the whole piece with the 120, and I'm doing all that on purpose. Yeah, it's pretty small. I think that's done. All right, so let's just hit it with some 400. Yeah, I think we got it. Okay, well now, obviously I've exaggerated moving on to the next grit too quick, but I hope you see what I'm saying. You just need to keep sanding. If I look at this 80 grit, it still has a whole area of higher stones in there. I'll take this out and we'll put the other one in, and then I'll do it the way I usually do. Okay, here's the brand new 80 grit that I'll be using on this one, and you know, it's just it's random what it's going to be, and this is even worse than what the other one is. That's telling me right now I have to spend some time on here and get this kind of broken down so that it's consistent throughout. I'm going to slow this down because I don't sand that fast. So 400. Nice and flat. So sanding on something this small, you're really not going to wear that disc down very fast. But sanding on a bowl, you will wear it down, and at that point in time, it's more than likely time to change discs and then go to the next grit in line. So you can see here I'm trying to keep that disc from the center to the right hand side for the most part. It'll slip over a little bit now and then, and it's really not going to hurt anything on a flat turning like this. I think you can see I've spent a lot more time with each disc sanding just to make sure I get everything with each grit, which is very important. Okay, rather than just figure I sanded enough, I'm going to inspect it. You know what I see right here? I see some real heavy grooves. That's going to be hard to get rid of with the next grit. Finish will not cover those scratches. They'll just make them stand out even more. Even if you're using like a pigmented lacquer and you think it's going to get rid of them, they just still show up through it. Okay, let's move on to the 120. One other thing is don't push real hard when you're sanding, because especially with the 80 grit, that forces it to cut those deep grooves. Now that right there looks really good except for the very edge, and I didn't spend much time on that. So even though I was just touching the edge up, I'll go ahead and move that disc around the whole thing just so everything is blended together. We got it. That's only 120, and it looks pretty nice. This is 240. That looks good, but wow, that's a pretty piece of wood. Need a little bit more right here. So that's kind of what I do I inspect it. I look for something that I think I cannot get rid of with the next grit. And that's right there. That's part of that tear out. Not going to get rid of it with the next grit, that's for sure. So if you do have a little stubborn spot, and I don't really see any, but if you do, you can stop it and then just sand on that area. Then go back in and do this again. So that's 220. You could easily put a finish on that. But we're going to go to 320. Time out. Well, that was quite a coincidence. I was just going to say what you should do between each grit is blow it off, and my compressor came on right when I was thinking that. So, especially on the heavy grits, because you could leave a grit in there. You don't want that. So, blow it off. Now we'll do 320. Usually by the time I hit 320, I've got anything out of there that I want gone. I'm just doing a little more polishing on the piece. We're going to go ahead and use a 400. And we'll put finish on both of them. Okay, so I've sanded both pieces using the same grits. I already don't even want to put finish on that first one, but we're going to do it. So that's the first one, and it doesn't even feel smooth. I mean, it's not lumpy or anything. This is just like a piece of glass. So I'm going to get something set up here, and we'll put some finish on it. And then you're going to see all the bad stuff that I missed. I went ahead and mounted this one back in the lathe. This is the first one that I did. It's marked A. I'll use shellac-based sanding sealer for this demo here. Since this is a sanding video, I'm not going to cover putting the finish on. I do have a couple videos on different finishes. If there's one that you're really interested in, let me know and I could probably do one of those. Alright, the results are in. I put 2 coats of Zinsser Seal Coat, which is shellac based, and 1 coat of the Zinsser Shellac. So we'll go ahead and look at the one that I was kind of careless on and got in a big hurry. So there's a number of things that I couldn't see without really looking hard, and that tear out there actually looked like it had sanded, but as soon as I hit it with some sanding sealer, it just got soft and it raised up, and it was a real nuisance. And then you'll see the pictures, and they'll show up these scratches even more than what I'm able to do here. There's a lot of deep 80 grit scratches right here that did not come out. And they didn't show up all that well. I could have seen them if I would have taken the time to look. But I'm trying to show you what would happen if you just assume that it was actually sanded because you spent so much time on it. But sometimes it doesn't work that way. Here's the one I examined. Every time I stopped, I looked at it. There isn't a scratch in it. Nice and smooth, same finish as the other. and this would look great on any turning. So that's how I do all of my turnings and sand them. You're liable to see a scratch in some of them that I miss, but if I see it before I think I'm totally done, and when I'm totally done, that means I've made a video on it. If I catch it before that, I've been known to sand all the finish off to get rid of one scratch, because I don't like one scratch in them. But it can happen, but there are none in here. I'll take some pictures side by side, and we'll be able to see that a lot better. And I hope this was beneficial, and I did have a lot of fun doing it. So let me know if you liked the video. Just looking at these two, they really don't look that different, but they sure do when they're up close. Like this one here, you can see some really heavy scratches from the 80 grit. And again, I did all this on purpose. I don't think anybody would sand as bad as I did this one. This one came out just about perfect, and that's always my goal, to get the best sanding job I can. I hope you enjoyed this video and you got something out of it. Let me know in the comments. If you'd like to see some of the other things I do, let me know. So, till the next time, see you later.